like I said, if you guys are comfortable, I just thought we'll see each other. We are going to have like an evening of interactions. So I think we will begin and the others can join as and when they do. Hi, good evening. My name is Pratishtha Khan. I am an instructor at the iThrive Academy. I teach stress and therapies for healing, as well as the coaching skills module in the course. And today we would be talking specifically about the beautiful confluence of mind, body, and soul in terms of healing, and how functional nutrition kind of gives us a way varied and extensive scope for healing through this specific connection. Is Pia listening in? Okay, I'm going to start. So, all right, people are still coming in. Yeah, I think we should start. You guys have waited long enough. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to take you through like some of the stuff we touch upon in functional nutrition and how it is extremely relevant to the entire concept of mind, body, soul healing. We hear the term a lot, but how do we bring the three energy elements together and cause complete healing using something that you're going to hear a lot about tonight? It's called the root cause analysis. And so let me just share my screen for you guys. All right. Can anyone let me know if you guys can see my screen? Yes. All right. Thank you. So we are talking tonight about the integration of functional nutrition and mind, body, soul healing, right? This term is just being used everywhere, but what does it truly mean from the POV of functional nutrition? I know you all have like an insight into what it means. We're bringing this together with a beautiful confluence of the vision of Illuminations and iThrive. iThrive has a vision of creating healthier, happier, lifestyle disease-free communities across the world every single day. And we do use the tenets of mind, body, soul healing in what we do. And of course, Illuminations have a vision to create a culture where people focus on their personal evolution as a key to lasting happiness. And what is happiness if not like a healthy, happy, wholesome, beautiful life, right? So a bit on iThrive, it's a health and wellness startup, and the entire focus has been on reversing chronic health conditions and lifestyle diseases. We do this through functional nutrition, and a core element in our functional nutrition is the root cause analysis. We obviously have like a team of extremely qualified functional nutritionists, and they do help people in reversing a multitude of health dysfunctions, right? And this is what we teach in the functional nutrition course. And of course, you all know about Illuminations, and they have like this holistic approach to self-development. And they believe in releasing the limitations that people have in their mental, emotional, and physical levels, so we can focus on a long-lasting transformation. So basically, both the visions and the path of Illuminations and iThrive matches. And through that, we have come to this mind, body, soul healing. So we all, I mean, I'm sure you guys are aware of this, but I'll just quickly go through this, that the mind is your thinking mind. It's your conscious, your subconscious and unconscious mind. And you know, your mental body is the seat of your feelings, your emotions, your desires, right? Your body, on the other hand, is the physical aspect. And this is the part which is best known to modern science, right? It's your skeletal framework, your muscles, your tissues, and we live, like we experience the world through the beautiful leashes of our five senses. And then is your soul or the spirit, that is the intangible life force that can never be destroyed, but only transformed, right? We also, and it is one drop in the ocean, right? That's like taken from the wave, that is the spirit or the source, right? We define source as consciousness, the universe, the field, energy, life force, any name you give it. Source consciousness is like the ultimate element, the God element, as some people call it, into which everything goes and everything originates from there. And one more energy element of us, the human experience, are emotions. Emotions are defined as energy in motion, and they can transmute any experience you have into a good or a bad one. So basically, we consider, like in functional nutrition, like emotions as a very, very important element of who we are, because we consider them a vibration of pure energy. Every emotion, whether like a denser emotion of fear, anger, pain, suffering, or an elevated emotion of joy, love, courage, carries a charge. And they are generated by our bodies based on two criteria. Primarily, what we are experiencing in the moment and the information stored in our body and minds from past experiences. Now, how does this confluence sort of translate into overall health? Right, is what we will look at. So having a healthy mind, we all know, right? Like your mind gives you clarity, right? It lets you make sense of everyday life with a certain cohesiveness. While whenever there is a mental imbalance or an illness, it can actually not just throw your mental body out of balance, it can actually manifest in physical sickness in the body. We now know that early childhood trauma can actually translate into autoimmune disorders later on in the body, because trauma is actually being stored in the body, right? So the mind is actually giving form to a sickness within the body when it's out of balance. The body on its like end, it actually corresponds to something we call the gut and the brain connection. While a healthy body will give you strength and vitality and all the energy to go through your life experiences, your physical health is directly influencing your mood, your mental and emotional well-being, as well as your mental fitness, right? The soul obviously corresponds to the heart-brain connection. With a healthy soul, we experience positive emotions, emotions with higher vibrations. We experience a sense of purpose, right? And we get a sense of being connected to something greater than yourself. Your emotional energy is how our soul communicates with our mind and body. So we may act in accordance with our soul's true design. So when the emotions are higher vibing, okay, when we have like high vibration emotions, when we are feeling love and courage, and we feel like a state of zen, we know that we are acting in accordance with our soul's true design. While any emotions that are dense, that make you shrink, that make you stay in a state of suffering, are basically an indication that we are like not in alignment with the soul's purpose. So keeping these basics in mind, there is basically like no clear distinction in terms of energies between the mind, body, and soul, right? Because where do we feel the emotions? The emotions which are an indication of whether you are like in alignment with the soul's purpose. You're feeling the emotions in your body and in your mind and your soul. So actually, from a scientific perspective, we know how deeply connected these three dimensions are: the mind, body, soul. It's not just like some esoteric woo-woo stuff that people are spewing. There is a scientific base to it. You can actually like look at it as being connected by the nervous system, and we will go a little deeper into that, or understand the nervous system as a part of the mind. So the nervous system originates in your mind, and your whole body is connected, and what you feel in your nervous system, the emotions tell you whether you're aligned with the soul. So everything is actually interconnected. So like, you, I mean, how, just giving an example, um you know, all of us have had a gut wrenching experience where you feel that experience like sort of wrenching your gut. And then, we have found ourselves in situations that can actually, like, it's an external situation, but it's making you feel nauseous. We all have felt butterflies in our stomach. That all that is, like, because of like this entire mind, body, and soul connection, right? When the balance of the mind, the body, or the soul is out of sync, um, the body starts talking to you because it's storing everything, right? It starts giving you signs. Disease is actually the last stage of an internal imbalance. When something actually manifests finally as an ailment or a disease, it is because a certain imbalance was not addressed in time. So, the symptoms of the imbalance in these aspects, the mind, body, soul, emotion aspect of us as human beings, as the human experience, all this can manifest as a form of imbalance. So if it's a broken psyche that we are dealing with, we have seen these, right? We have seen a broken mind can actually result in issues with physical health, issues with interpersonal relationships. There is general feeling of anxiety and depression that people are living with. It's also become like a sort of like an internal soul pandemic after 2020, especially. People are living with mood swings, and there is lack of self-expression. There is a sense of lack of belongingness and feeling disconnected. When it's a psychosomatic imbalance, people might experience illness and disease, fatigue, loss of physical aesthetics, they can't sleep. Digestive issues are extremely common in somatic imbalances. We will go a little deeper into that. Even mood swings, your irritability, even if there is no other physical symptom, they might feel uncontrolled anger, loss of libido, and poor immunity are another set of symptoms with a somatic imbalance. And this is just like a small list. It just goes on and on. All this because of an imbalance in the fractal aspects of us as human beings. Then, of course, when the emotional system, when we are not able to process emotions fully, and that energy is stored within the body, we end up with being chronically stressed. I'm sure you guys must have seen all this with your clients in your practice. If you're practicing, we see emotional outbursts. People are completely on an on mode. They're hyper vigilant. They're constantly, their body is in a state of alarm. They feel needy, anxious, or they are avoidant and emotionally distant. So all these are like kind of body sending signals that the emotions are not in a state of balance, and they are being stored in the body in some sort of state of alarm. Then, of course, with a disconnected soul, there is an overall expression of depression, apathy, zero creative energy. You just feel stagnant and stuck. You feel there is no point to life. There is absolutely no joy. There is no energy. All this because these are signs that you are not in alignment with the soul. So what can we actually do to basically bring everything back into balance? And from the root of functional nutrition is what we are going to cover, right? So this is what I was talking about, like the gut wrenching experience, feeling nauseous, butterflies in your stomach. So why does all this happen? This happens because your gastrointestinal tract is extremely sensitive to emotions, right? I mean, very few people correlate this, but actually those emotions are being felt in your body. And anger, anxiety, sadness, even elation, all of these feelings can trigger symptoms in the gut because the brain has a direct effect on your stomach and intestines. This connection, by the way, goes both ways. So your brain can affect your gut health, and your gut health can actually affect your brain health, right? A troubled intestine can send signals to the brain, just as the troubled brain can send signals to the gut. So basically, a person's stomach or intestinal distress can be the cause or the product. Like I said, it goes both ways, of anxiety, stress, or depression. So anxiety, stress, and depression can cause intestinal distress, and intestinal distress can in turn cause anxiety, stress, or depression because of them being intimately connected. So this is especially true. We've seen cases where a person experienced gastrointestinal upset with no obvious physical cause. So for such GI disorders, it's difficult to try and heal a distressed gut without considering the role of stress and emotions, because they are having a direct impact on the gut. Given how closely the gut and brain interact, now you can see that it becomes easier to understand why you actually might feel nauseated before giving a presentation or having an annual review or a stressful situation, or some people even feel intestinal stress. Just give me a second. So that what it means is that your functional gastrointestinal conditions are not imagined or all in your head. There is actually a physiological reason for that. So psychology, when combined with physical factors, can cause pain and other bowel symptoms, right? So psychosocial factors also can influence the actual physiology of the gut and cause gut related symptoms, right? So moving on. Okay, before I get onto the stress symptom. So basically this, I think, like tells you how the brain and gut are actually connected. Like your thoughts can actually affect your GI tract, and your GI tract, if there is an underlying infection which is undetected, or if there are parasites over there, or if there is like a leaky gut syndrome, that can in turn lead to stress and anxiety levels, and improved gut health will obviously address those symptoms as well. So which is why we cannot like just focus on the mind or on the body. Everything has to be taken together and has to be worked on together. Someone wants to say something? Okay, so now let's see the actual physical implications of stress. What stress does to the body. We know that stress is felt in the body. It's always a protective reaction and it's always stored in the body. But there is a complex physical aspect to it. I'm going to show you a diagram. Please don't get intimidated by the diagram. This is just a diagrammatic representation of what is happening in your body when there is a stressor. So you could be like the most Zen person in the world. You are like doing meditations, you have a mental balance, your soul is in alignment, but something actually could come and become a physiological stressor, like an infection, or there could be an accident, or there could be toxin exposure. So whenever the body detects a physical stressor, it elicits a stress response. Likewise, even if there is an absence of a physical stressor, the psychological stressors also elicit a stress response. Now, what is this stress response? Okay, so the nervous system has several divisions. The central division involving the brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral division, which consists of your autonomic and somatic nervous system, right? So it is the autonomic system, or the ANS, which has a direct role in the physical stress response. And it is divided into basically the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis and the sympathetic adrenomedular axis, right? So whenever the body detects a stressor, it could be a physical stressor, or it could be a emotional stressor or a psychological stressor. Whenever the body is stressed, the sympathetic nervous system contributes to the stress response through these two axes, the HPA axis and the sympathetic adrenomedular axis. Okay, these release mediators, which are your cortisol and adrenaline. And so basically your hypothalamus and pituitary are in your brain and adrenals behind your kidneys. And in the SAM axis, the signal goes directly through your medulla oblongata and goes to the adrenals, which release these mediators, which is your adrenaline and cortisol. So these hormones, okay, once they are released into the system, can cause several physiological changes which are actually protective in nature. Please understand, stress response happens in the body to protect you from a real or perceived threat, right? What happens is the response is very fairly sudden in order to prepare the body to respond to an emergency situation or acute stress or a short-term stressor, right? Once the crisis is over, the body usually returns to the pre-emergency unstressed states. So basically, but when these mediators act upon the body, this is what happens in your body. Your energy is mobilized. There are metabolic and immune system changes. Digestion gets suppressed because obviously when you're facing extreme stress, digestion is like the least priority of the body. So is reproduction. So there we see these systems shut down. Then like over prolonged exposure, all these, like you can actually have epigenetic programming through continued stress exposure. And what happens is it all eventually leads to physiological and behavioral changes which help you adapt to that stressor. Now, what happens in stages of prolonged stress? Anyway, the stress response, like if I have to show you in a visual cute form, is so the brain detects a stressor, which could be a physical or a psychological stressor. Your hypothalamus, please don't be intimidated by these terms, releases the ACTH, which is the adrenocorticotropic hormone, and activates the adrenal glands that release adrenaline and cortisol. Okay, because your body is perceiving a threat right now. It needs to fight or it needs a flight. So now for that, it needs all the reserves of the energy stored within the body. How these two stress hormones facilitate that is your heart rate increases. So when you're stressed and there's like acute stress response, if something jumps out in front of you while you're walking down the road, your heart immediately starts pumping faster, right? Because it's pumping faster, there is high blood pressure because that blood requires to go to the extremities of your body. Your liver starts converting glycogen to glucose, which basically means that your body is now making more and more energy. There is dilation of bronchioles. You start breathing faster and it's shallow breath, right? Because you need more energy, you need more oxygen, and oxygen is very crucial in the formation of energy within the body. While all this is happening and everybody is on a hyperdrive, the digestive system says this, I'm not a priority right now. And we see decreased digestive system activity, right? So all this is normal stress response in a body. Eventually, once, like I said, once the crisis is over, the body should return to the pre-emergency unstressed state. But what happens is, in a stage of chronic stress, or when somebody is experiencing stressors over a prolonged period of time, now your body is in this state all the time, right? So there is a long-term drain on the body. The autonomic nervous system is triggering physical reactions. All these reactions are continually being triggered. And obviously, since this is not the natural state of body to exist, the wear and tear happens to the body. So it's not what the chronic stress just does to the nervous system, but the continuous activation of the nervous system resulting in all these things happening within your body, within your bodily systems, is what causes physical problems with prolonged stress, right? Are there any questions so far? Am I going too fast? Is it clear so far, everyone? All right, thank you. So we will go back to this. I'm always amused by how happy adrenal glands look doing all this to our body, but I know they are doing like a protective function. So, okay, so what is functional nutrition, right? So we saw in all these previous slides how the mind affects, like has a actual physical effect. Like the stress is not just something happening in your head, it has a physical implication. It's affecting your liver, it's affecting your digestive system, your blood pressure. So there's a physical implication of stress. And through the mind and gut connection, we saw that your gut can actually, if your gut is not in balance, and actually can affect your mind or your brain. So this connection is established, and through emotions, we are already in touch with our alignment with the soul. So what role does functional nutrition play in this healing, right? This is a mode of knowledge that sees your mind, body, soul as interconnected rather than as separate parts. We are a unit, we are a full comprehensive unit which has these energy portions, which is your body, your mind, and your soul, and your emotions acting as mediators. So functional nutrition, rather than looking at symptomatic assessment and then just treating the symptom, it looks at identifying imbalances in any of these aspects that might be leading to a physical and mental disharmony that we saw in the previous slides, right? Again, the root cause. I can't wait to take you guys through the root cause part of it. It deals with the root cause of mental and physical problems and not just the symptoms. Like what is causing that mental fog? What is causing that depression? What is, is it always an emotional or a mental cause, or could that be rooted in something within the body? So in that sense, it's a very holistic rather than reductionist approach, wherein we have people to treat the body, we have people to treat the minds, we have the gurus to treat the soul. No, we are one unit. We need to be treated as such. So functional nutrition actually focuses on the patient as a whole individual. And since all of us are unique, right? We all have a very, very unique signature mind, body, soul system. And it is so interconnected that an imbalance which is not addressed in one aspect will sooner or later show up as a disorder in the other aspect. So something in the mind might show up in your body, something in the body will affect the mind, right? And since the mind exists in the service of the soul, right? We all know that. It helps us align with the soul's purpose. If the mind is suffering, the soul's purpose cannot obviously be in sync. So functional nutrition is like that personalized method, which looks at every individual as a unique person, as a unique fractal, and it uses methods of optimizing health on that individual's genetics. Our genetics are unique. Our lab values are unique. Okay, we all have a different lifestyle, and we have got lots of like aspects which kind of affect our health and our living conditions in different ways. So what does functional nutrition cover? How does it do that? So basically you get an understanding of your blood is basically your blood work is actually like detective work. Okay. When you usually get like blood work done, you have certain lab parameters within which your CBC will lie, within that your thyroid and liver parameters will lie. But what functional nutrition does is it goes beyond those markers, those numbers that we see, those cryptic numbers that tell us, okay, there is a vitamin B12 deficiency, or there is like a elevation or reduction in hemoglobin. When we come to the root cause analysis, we say, all right, this is not working. But why is this not working? So this is sort of like deeper and deeper detective work as to what lies beneath any kind of imbalance that shows up in the blood work. And why is blood work crucial? Because people might misinterpret or lie about their symptoms, but your blood can never lie. So that is like the foundation of functional nutrition. When we get the blood work and we start unraveling little details, and they are very fascinating. I'll show you some examples of the same in a while. So going back to sharing my screen. So your blood tests can actually start giving us an indication of the root cause of the disease. Okay, where has that screen gone? You will start understanding optimal ranges of nutrients because they are also unique to individuals, right? So once you start uncovering what imbalances or nutrient deficiencies there are in someone, you can start helping them restore those. Now, understanding nutrition, everyone tends to think that we know nutrition, but there are such cryptic, beautiful elements to nutrition and how everything comes together like a jigsaw puzzle and can actually restore, like, a supplement or a right nutrient can actually restore my brain function, my energy, my vitality. It's beautiful. So a deeper understanding of nutrition can actually help you restore their health. And obviously, a very, very important aspect of reversing chronic disease and conditions, where people have gone from one medical professional to another one, being given medication that treats their symptoms, but doesn't really address the root cause. Guys, put yourself on mute. Can you guys use this? Okay. Wait, hang on. Can't figure out. Deepti, okay, thank you so much. All right, going back. So reversing chronic diseases and conditions is one primary strength of functional nutrition. You will actually learn what could be. So there is no generic diagnosis that you have diabetes, she has diabetes, so the root cause will be the same for both of you, or the same treatment will work for both of you, or this person has depression or that person has depression. The root cause could be mental, it could be physical in the other person, and hence the treatment will have to be customized to the unique needs of that individual. And that is what functional nutrition actually teaches you. Basically understanding how each body needs are interconnected as a whole, right? Like every aspect of the body is interconnected. You will also get an understanding of supplements, because sometimes what happens is, even with like a balanced diet, those nutrients are probably not being absorbed in the body because of certain imbalance. And supplements are something sort of like, that little gaps in nutrition, which it might seem like a small gap, but it can actually have a very, very severe adverse effect on the body when left untreated. Like, something as simple as a magnesium deficiency can manifest itself in so many various physical symptoms, like one of them being serious brain fog and depression. So once you start understanding the importance of supplementation along with nutrition, you can give them like a completely balanced nutrition program, which is basically going to slowly start restoring the body and in turn start restoring the mind as well. There are a lot of products out there in the market which have beautiful marketing and are loaded with fillers and toxins. You will also get an understanding of what products are safe. Some products might actually end up in your blood test, in your root cause analysis, as external estrogen administration, which can cause serious hormonal imbalances and mood swings within a person. So through functional nutrition, like, looks at what products are safe. You will learn to read labels. You will also understand mental and emotional triggers that can cause repetitive self-sabotaging patterns in people, why they keep going back to eating things which are not healthy for them. You will learn aspects of coaching as to how to encourage someone to stay on track with their nutritional body, mind, and soul needs. So these are just like some basic pointers. This is obviously like, in a couple of slides, one can never ever cover the scope of functional nutrition, right? So let's come to the root cause approach. So like I said, a symptom like a headache could result from so many reasons. So the root cause approach actually looks at understanding. So the root of the root cause per se lies in understanding each person as a unique mind, body, soul unit. And this is becoming more crucial for healing and prevention as well. So once we have uncovered the root cause, that is when we have precise diagnosis. I will show you the difference between diagnosis. We will discuss it, diagnosis and precise diagnosis, and how root cause helps us reach over there. Now once that root cause has been established for a mental imbalance, for a physical imbalance, for a gut imbalance, you can, using that person's very, very unique and specific inputs, um, bring in dietary changes, you can bring in supplementations, you can start addressing, once the root causes have been found, you can start uprooting them. And through, which is why, because through functional nutrition, like this is just such a small scope of it actually, it can treat a range of conditions, including mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, and ADHD. Like who knew nutrition can actually reverse these conditions? You can work on gastrointestinal problems like the irritable bowel syndrome, which is so common and it's just spreading like wildfire, reflux and colic, anything from a variety of other conditions ranging from headaches to insomnia, like from something very mild to something very, very serious. Okay. Why is root cause analysis so important? Because your body, we have seen so far, it's a complex system of multiple systems working together. Like your heart is affected by your emotional health. Your gut could be affected by your brain, right? Like depression could be reducing your immunity overall, which could make the body susceptible to active infection. So everything is interrelated. It is highly likely that one health problem doesn't stem from one issue, right? And likewise, it might not affect one system alone. So, basically, like I discussed, there's a huge increase in patients with mental afflictions that finally manifest as physical symptoms of chronic disease. And the root of that could be and often lies in the body and can be determined through the root cause analysis. So the reverse is also true, by the way, that any untreated physical ailments start affecting your subtle body or the mind, and finally they start ailing the spirit. So once you have the proper diagnosis, okay, this is what I need to do as a healer, as a therapist, right? For example, I'll give you some basic examples. Like, depression can be caused by actual physical inflammation, like when the body is not at ease due to underlying inflammation, and the person senses that physical unease, that can eventually lead to depression if the inflammation is unaddressed, right? Likewise, a cause such as inflammation may lead to a number of different diagnoses, and one of them being depression. So, it goes both ways. Very recently, like, till very recently, respiratory issues were just seen as lung issues, but now we are more and more realizing, and it's becoming evident that it has as much to do with gut health as with lung health, right? So the precise manifestation of each cause will depend on the individual's genes, their environment, their lifestyle, and only treatments that address the right causes will have lasting benefit beyond symptom suppression. So we arrive at those through the root cause analysis, right? So which is basically an in-depth analysis of your lab reports, as I mentioned, your blood reports, with optimal ranges as against the regular ranges that you see. Functional nutrition has optimal ranges, which are worked out on the basis of the ranges of healthy individuals, because one of the important roles of functional nutrition is to make sure that people don't fall sick. So even before ailment comes, functional nutrition can start reversing it, right? So each blood marker is like any imbalance in each blood marker is attributed to a set of deficiencies or some sort of inflammation or the signs of a body fighting an infection or any other balance. But all these together could actually be causing a completely seemingly unrelated set of symptoms. But what happens is that because through functional nutrition, we learn to go beyond the symptoms, we can start looking into triggers such as depression or stress or poor nutrition. Is this person being exposed to toxins in their daily life? Is there lack of sleep? Is there electromagnetic field exposure? Because surprisingly, as you will learn through functional nutrition, EMF exposure can actually relate to a whole dam of mental and physical ailments. And are they being exposed to allergens, even their microbiome, which is the bacteria living inside and on your body? All these things together determine what could be the cause of that underlying disease or that underlying imbalance. So there are like so many aspects to why a person can actually fall sick. And through functional nutrition, we can start understanding those triggers. Once that trigger is identified, then you can, through the root cause analysis, you can plan a very, very customized protocol for that client that will address all the aspects of their life, right from their physical needs, including nutrition, exercise, and sleep, to their mental and emotional stressors related to social work and community life, right? So through root cause analysis and through functional nutrition, what we are doing, we are actually acknowledging a patient's unique biochemical individuality, and we are assessing where the imbalance lies in the body or in the mind, and then work accordingly to uproot it, right? And how do we do it? We use a combination of nutritional interventions. We start with the treatment of underlying infections, which can be detected through advanced testing. We start them on like a very, very specific and, like that detox is being thrown left, right, and center on the internet, and people are doing DIY detox. There are actual detox pathways in the body. And if you don't do it in the right way, it can actually mess up a person's system and make it worse than before. So through functional nutrition, we actually learn how to do that detoxing properly. And then obviously we work on restoring broken lifestyle patterns, which actually gets covered in nutrition aspect as well. And we also try to understand the physical environment to see where, there could be allergen or toxin exposure. And then we address their overall environment to see where the mental triggers are, right? So the shift of the treatment happens from like symptom suppression to the long-term health of the whole person. Okay. I think this I'll take you through later. So I've been saying root cause analysis. Like, what is root cause analysis? I'm going to give you two very, very simple examples. Okay, so we see a lot of people with like hair fall come to us, and they have tried a lot of remedies. Some improvement has been seen, but it really doesn't resolve itself. That is because they're focusing on the symptom, which is like the hair fall. Okay, what they are like not really trying to do is get to why. What is hair fall is happening? Why is the hair fall happening? You can use the best shampoos, you can use the best hair care products, you might add some supplements. So one of the underlying reasons for hair loss could be a thyroid problem, to be more precise, hypothyroid. Now, hypothyroidism will show up in your blood test. Okay. That's not your root cause analysis. Your root cause, and that is your diagnosis that, okay, this person might have hypothyroidism. What is causing that hypothyroidism? Is it that the body is, like, one of the reasons could be that there is an inadequate supply of necessary nutrients to the thyroid gland. Okay, so it is not even able to produce the required thyroid hormones, leading to hypothyroidism. Now, this is your root cause. So hypothyroidism has happened. What has caused it? There are not enough nutrients in the body reaching the thyroid gland and enabling it to make the thyroid hormone, right? So to identify exactly what necessary nutrients you need that blood test based root cause analysis. Okay, so that is what, like, it is. The other example is, so we often see people with vitamin B12 or folate deficiency, and often these deficiencies can lead to problems like lack of energy or tiredness or psychological problems, which may include depression and confusion. They will also experience problems with memory or understanding and judgment. Now your blood test again will reveal a vitamin B12 or folate deficiency. Okay, so that's like a diagnosis that, okay, there is a deficiency. Now, it's not very common unless, like, you've been vegan for a very long time, for the body to not get those enough nutrients from your food. It's not very common that you are not getting enough B12 or folate from your food. So simple supplementation will not help over here. Now, like, if you know, through the client's history, you kind of find out that there is a lack of those vitamins in the diet, then of course you can supplement and you can include nutrients that kind of increase the presence of those vitamins, but that is uncommon. What could be the other underlying root cause is something called pernicious anemia, where your immune system actually attacks the healthy cells in your stomach, preventing your body from absorbing those vitamins. Okay, so now if the underlying cause is pernicious anemia, that is what you need to treat, right? So that is what your root cause analysis can reveal. Then certain medications like your protein pump inhibitors or anticonvulsants can also affect how much of these vitamins your body is absorbing. Okay, so this is what actually root cause does. So you get these blood markers and then you see certain patterns emerging, and then you start doing the root cause analysis, which leads you to how everything is interconnected, how one form of deficiency could be showing a repetitive pattern, connecting with other patterns in another set of markers, and then an actual, like, it's again like very detective work kind of scene, but it's one of the most exciting parts of functional nutrition, which actually enables us to reverse those chronic lifestyle diseases. I'm going to show you something from, like, the course that I teach. So basically, when there is like a prolonged exposure to stressors, right? And the body is being affected because of the stress response. What is involved are your adrenals. So when you are overusing an organ, there is a fatigue that sets in that organ. Okay, so that is what's called adrenal fatigue. That usually is an indication that the person's body is fighting a stressor. It could be a physical stressor, it could be a psychological stressor. The other thing is when adrenals are over functioning, that is again in the presence of a stressor. And that is where, like, there's too much cortisol in the system. So functional nutritionists, like, still do like the cortisol hormone test to determine whether there is excess cortisol in the system. Now it's a hormone test. One, two, it's usually not very indicative of the actual stress situation in your life, because cortisol tends to fluctuate through the day. So if you didn't sleep well the night before, your cortisol levels might be higher the next day, but that doesn't mean that there is continued adrenal stress in your system. We have in functional nutrition found markers within the blood test that are indicative of adrenal dysfunction or adrenal fatigue. So what I'm going to show you next, just look at it and just understand the concept, because it's a little sort of complicated and technical. It will give you an indication and the importance of root cause analysis. So, and how our body is like this beautiful puzzle where you can just like look at two pieces and like, okay, this seems to be making a tree or something like so. Different pieces come together and a picture starts emerging, and that's what we do with functional nutrition. So, going back to my slide. So when we get like our blood work done, we will often get like our serum sodium and serum potassium. This is in your liver panel, right? Usually we observe that they could be like due to like a dehydration or due to mineral depletion. They are either both elevated or they are either both decreased. That's the usual pattern of imbalance. But if we see, and the functional nutrition ranges of sodium are 135 to 142 and potassium is 4 to 4.4, which are not the same as lab ranges. These are the functional nutrition ranges. If we see this pattern where sodium has increased and potassium has decreased, okay, so there is this androgen or hormone like a mediator, which is called aldosterone, right? You have not done the cortisol test over there. You've just done a regular blood test. So when the sodium has increased and potassium has decreased, that usually indicates high aldosterone. Now, the beautiful thing about aldosterone levels is that aldosterone and cortisol are made, okay, wait, hang on, made parallelly in your body. So if there is high aldosterone, there will be high cortisol. Now, why does high sodium indicate high aldosterone? Because what aldosterone does in the body is it reabsorbs the sodium back into the body and it excretes potassium. So now, since sodium has been reabsorbed, there is an increased level of sodium. And since potassium has been excreted by aldosterone, there is a decreased level of potassium in the body. Okay. You can forget about water follows sodium and all. This is like for much later. What basically it indicates is high aldosterone. Now, since high aldosterone and cortisol are both produced parallelly, high aldosterone indicates that there is higher level of cortisol in the body, which means that the body is fighting a stressor. The opposite pattern is when sodium has decreased and serum potassium has increased. Now, because aldosterone we saw over here, it reabsorbs sodium. So if there is not enough aldosterone in the body, there is not enough sodium being reabsorbed in the body, which is why there is a lower sodium level or even low normal, because it's being excreted, because aldosterone is not reabsorbing it. Now, potassium is high because there is not enough aldosterone to excrete it. So potassium would increase. This indicates that there is low aldosterone in the body. Now, because aldosterone and cortisol are made parallelly, it also means that there is lesser cortisol in the body, which means that adrenals are facing a state of fatigue. Okay, which means that they have probably been fighting an internal stressor for the long time. So we can just forget about it. This is like very technical. So this is how complex root cause analysis can get. Like it can just remove that layer after layer after layer in a very, very fascinating way. And I know it might have looked a little technical over here, but once you start understanding it, you will actually realize how everything comes together so beautifully and cohesively to give you the entire picture of what a human being is and what they could be going through. So that cortisol levels could be fluctuating in the body either because of a psychological stressor or because the body has been fighting an underlying infection for so long that now the adrenals are getting fatigued. So, which is why we need to start looking at the mind body connection and start doing that healing, which is where functional nutrition comes in. So, who should actually be looking at functional nutrition as like a course? So if you are an existing therapist or a healer or like a yoga teacher, any form of well-being professionals, Reiki professionals, functional nutrition will actually help you bring the entire body into sync, because now you're just not treating the mind and the soul, you are also looking at the actual physical aspect, and many times that physical aspect is revealing itself into a mental disorder or a spiritual sort of disharmony, right? So you can add this offering as like a and create like a complete holistic healing, because now you're healing the body as well and creating a truly transformative journey, which we have seen so many of like in our work. Okay, even as a psychiatrist or a hypnotherapist, any kind of therapist in fact can add functional nutrition to their like relevant set of skills, because it just helps them treat that human being as a complete unit, right? One very, very important aspect of functional nutrition is to start your own healing journey, to look at yourself, to go within and see where certain disharmonies might have just started emerging, because you, like I said, you could be the most zen person, you could be the most emotionally balanced person, but the body faces what it faces, and it is kind of our responsibility to take care of this beautiful physical vessel in the best way possible. So yeah, that about covers my overview of how functional nutrition actually brings all these elements so beautifully together. I hope it made sense. If there are any questions, I would be glad to answer them.